A girl, afflicted with nothing more than a rare skin condition, finds herself relentlessly bullied and ostracized by her peers. Her strikingly pale, unusual skin quickly makes her the village outcast, branded a freak by everyone around her. Constant exclusion and humiliation define her entire childhood. Even her own father comes to see her as a bad omen, regularly beating her with a whip to vent his frustrations. Worn down by years of relentless discrimination and abuse, the girl, Anna, begins to slip into a dissociative haze. Unable to bear the suffocating darkness of her life any longer, she finally flees the village. She runs blindly for what feels like an eternity, eventually collapsing from exhaustion deep in a dense forest. A man named Jacques, out hunting that day, discovers her unconscious. Rather than recoiling from her unusual skin, he brings her back to the hotel he runs and even sets her up in a quiet room of her own. Learning she's a runaway with nowhere else to go, he feels a deep tenderness toward her, even gifting her an exquisite piece of jewelry. The very first gift Anna has ever received in her life, and the first time anyone has ever treated her with gentleness. In the dim hotel room, Jack's presence feels like a ray of light breaking into her world. For the first time, Anna experiences what it feels like to be loved, and Jack, in turn, finds himself drawn to her fair skin and gentle nature. The two young people fall naturally into a relationship, but this brief, sweet chapter is shattered all too soon. While Anna is still lost in the bliss of new love, Jack tells her he has urgent business to attend to in the city and will be back shortly. She agrees without hesitation. What she could never have imagined is that this wait would stretch on for an entire year. During that time, she pours every ounce of her devotion into love letters, hiding them beneath a loose stone slab under her bed, waiting to surprise him upon his return. But Jack seems to vanish into thin air, never setting foot in the hotel again. Anna's longing slowly curdles into worry, then dread. Unable to bear the uncertainty any longer, she disguises her unusual skin as best she can and travels alone to the city to find him and demand answers. But when she finally tracks him down, she discovers he's already started a new family, and his wife is even pregnant. In an instant, everything beautiful she'd believed in shatters. Devastated, Anna stumbles back to the hotel, utterly broken by the betrayal. Consumed by a twisted certainty that Jack abandoned her solely because of her strange skin, she stands before a mirror and takes a knife to her own flesh. The searing pain doesn't stop her. Driven by a storm of resentment and despair, she continues for 5 full days, until she finally dies from blood loss inside the very hotel room that had once held all her happiness and, ultimately, her ruin. Years later, the hotel prepares to reopen. On her very first day, the new cleaning lady has barely settled in before she hears intermittent crying drifting down from the 3rd floor. A floor she'd been explicitly warned never to enter, no matter what sounds came from it, when she was first hired. She tries to ignore it, but the mournful crying gnaws at her until, after much hesitation, she finds herself drawn up to the 3rd floor anyway. The door where the sound is coming from is locked tight. She presses her eye to the gap but can't make anything out. Curiosity gets the better of her, and she tries picking the lock with a hairpin, without success. Just as she's about to give up and turn away, the locked door swings open on its own, and a wave of cold instantly sweeps over her. Gathering her nerve, she flips on the hallway lights, but after only a few steps, the bulbs start exploding one after another, as though warning her to leave. Still, curiosity wins out, and she makes her way to the room at the very end of the hall. Pushing the door open, she finds a long-haired woman with deathly pale skin staring directly at her. Terrified out of her mind, she spends the next 2 days in prayer. But on the 3rd night, as she prays again, a sudden crack of thunder outside coincides with something deeply unsettling. A chill runs down her spine, and she's overwhelmed with the feeling that something is right behind her. When she finally musters the courage to turn around, the woman's figure has vanished. The bone-deep cold in the room drives her to burrow under the covers in fear. But when she finally peeks out for air, the pale-skinned woman is there, clinging to the ceiling directly above her bed. A piercing scream rings out, and her daughter rushes into the room, only to find her mother already dead. Word of the hotel's haunting spreads quickly after this, and business plummets. The elderly couple who run the hotel call in their 2 granddaughters, Lena and Mira. They don't expect the business to ever fully recover. They simply ask one thing of their granddaughters: never, under any circumstances, go to the 3rd floor. The grandmother refuses to reveal what's hidden up there, insisting only that they stay away. But the more something is concealed, the more it seems to invite curiosity. On their very first night at the hotel, Lena happens to glance toward the 3rd floor and notices a light on in what should be an empty room. Uneasy but unable to resist, she ignores her grandmother's warnings and heads straight up to investigate. She finds the door secured with 2 separate locks, with faint crying audible from within. Assuming a guest must have wandered in by mistake, she finds tools and forces the locks open. The eerie hallway carries the same intermittent crying the cleaning lady once heard. Following the sound to the room at the end, Lena cautiously pushes the door open, and the moment it swings open, the crying stops abruptly. What greets her is the same ghastly pale-skinned woman. Terrified, Lena slams the door shut, unaware that, from the moment she opened it, the spirit has already marked her. Within 3 days, disaster is set to befall her. The curse's countdown has silently begun, and strange occurrences follow close behind. Stepping outside later, she's startled to find a bloody number scrawled on her car window. She assumes it's a child's prank, but when she goes to look closer, the bloody mark vanishes into thin air. An ominous feeling settles over her. Determined to find out who the mysterious figure on the third floor really is, she finally tells her grandmother about her trip up there. The moment she hears it, the grandmother realizes something is seriously wrong. Just then, the front desk calls. A guest needs towels. Lena delivers them personally, and when she asks if anything else is needed, that same eerie crying drifts out from the bathroom. Getting no response, she pushes the bathroom door open, but it's completely empty. The next moment, the phone behind her rings. Hearing an unsettling voice on the other end, she hangs up in a panic. Just as she's about to leave, she catches what looks like a figure moving behind the curtains. As she leans in cautiously to check, the figure suddenly lunges at her. Thankfully, she manages to turn and flee the room. Her boyfriend, Daika, rushes in to comfort the shaken Lena. But when he steps into the room to check, everything appears completely normal, as if the whole incident had just been Lena's imagination. A skeptic by nature, Daika assumes she simply hasn't adjusted to the new environment yet and urges her to calm down and stop overthinking things. Once the hotel staff catch wind of the incident, they begin resigning one after another. As the strange occurrences grow more frequent, Lena finally can't take it anymore and confronts her grandmother, demanding to know what secret the third floor is truly hiding. Unable to keep the truth buried any longer, the grandmother finally reveals what she's carried for years. 6 years earlier, the elderly couple had inherited the hotel from their late son, Lena's father. Back then, the building was run down, so they'd hired renovation workers to fix it up. One of the workers, while working on the third floor, also heard crying from inside a room. Curious, he opened the door and saw the same pale-skinned woman. At the time, no one thought much of it. Until 3 nights later, at midnight, the worker suddenly began acting erratically, repeatedly slamming his head against the wall. The elderly couple tried to stop him, only to realize he'd already been possessed by the spirit. He died from the impact, having bashed his skull against the wall until the end. After the death, the couple hired someone to perform an exorcism, but the shaman stopped dead at the third floor door, declaring the resentment trapped inside far too powerful for him to handle. With no other option, the couple sealed the entire third floor and forbade anyone from going near it, keeping the whole affair hidden from the public to protect the business. Hearing the truth, Lena is terrified, but waiting passively has never solved anything. Determined to break the 3-day death curse, she and her sister Mira decide to venture back up to the third floor one more time, hoping to find some clue about the pale-skinned woman that might save her life. The sisters push the door open again, but this time, the room appears empty. As they search every corner carefully, Mira suddenly freezes. Clearly visible in the mirror behind her, the pale woman is standing right there. Meanwhile, Lena discovers a loose stone slab under the bed. Lifting it reveals a pile of torn paper fragments hidden beneath. Just as she picks them up, about to call her sister to leave, she turns to find Mira slamming her own head against the wall, uncontrollably, the exact same way the renovation worker had died years before. Lena rushes to stop her, but Mira, now fully possessed, turns and attacks her instead. Fortunately, Daika hears the commotion and bursts in just in time, grabbing the out-of-control Mira and slamming her against the wall to snap her out of it. None of them notice, however, that Anna, standing by the window, has already placed the same curse on Daika as well. Shaken but alive, the group flees the room and pieces together the torn fragments they'd recovered. Slowly, it becomes clear that everything seems connected to their late father. Reading Anna's love letters addressed to Jack leaves them more confused than ever. Determined to uncover Anna's true identity, they dig through their father's remaining belongings and finally find, in a long-forgotten diary, the answer to everything, unraveling a decades-old misunderstanding. It turns out that Lena's father, Jack, hadn't gone to the city for business at all. He'd gone secretly to buy an engagement ring, intending to return and finally give Anna a proper place in his life. But no one could have known that, just after leaving the jewelry store, he was struck in a severe car accident, left badly injured and with no memory of who he was. Racked with guilt, the couple responsible for the accident took him in, gave him a new identity, and eventually had him marry their own daughter. Jack lived out his life in this new family, always feeling an inexplicable emptiness inside, unable to place exactly what he'd lost. It wasn't until years later that his buried memories suddenly resurfaced. He remembered Anna, waiting for him at the hotel, and the promise they'd made to each other. Frantic, he rushed back to the hotel, but by the time he reached the third floor room, Anna was already gone, leaving only her body behind. Overwhelmed with grief and guilt, Jack carried her remains down to the hotel basement and buried her there himself, carving a jasmine flower into the wall beside her grave, her favorite flower. The entire tragedy had been nothing more than a cruel accident and a misunderstanding that never got the chance to be resolved. Anna died believing she'd been abandoned, never knowing that the man she'd resented for a lifetime had, in truth, loved her for that same lifetime. Jack believed that burying her remains would let her soul finally rest, but Anna's anguish remained trapped in that room, bound by the unresolved belief that she'd been discarded. To finally break the curse, Anna needs to know the truth. Everything Jack did for her, so she can let go of the resentment she's carried toward the world. Among their father's belongings, the siblings find the ring, sealed away for decades, and resolve to go down to the basement, find Anna's remains, and return it to her, to let her know she was never truly abandoned. With the third night's curse looming, they race to find the exact spot where Anna was buried. Following clues from the diary, they make their way to the basement entrance, a labyrinth of winding passages, navigating by the jasmine flower marked in the journal as their only guide. As midnight approaches, they finally locate the flower just in time. Lena digs frantically, and just as she finally unearths Anna's bones and prepares to slip the ring onto her finger, the cursed Dika suddenly lunges to stop her. Though he manages to restrain her, Lena fights with everything she has. And in the final second before the midnight bell tolls, she succeeds in placing the ring on Anna's hand. Dika slowly regains his senses, and Anna's bones transform back into the image of the woman she once was in life. Finally feeling the love and truth that arrived decades too late, she lets go of everything she'd been holding onto, dissolving into ash and drifting away into the air. The curse that had haunted the hotel for decades is finally, completely broken. The film ends here. See you next time.